we wanted to do things a little bit differently because we often talk about repricing and repricing technology. It's what we do, it's our core business. But we think that the conversation we have and the narrative that everyone hears is getting a bit repetitive. So we wanted to pivot the conversation to some use cases that aren't necessarily discussed so often, especially within the private label community, but are often discussed internally here at SellerSnap. And so I wanted to talk about what we call, or we've been calling internally, as the invisible private label buy box. Before I get into it, my name is Adrian. I'm the head of product here at SellerSnap. My job is to listen to customers and turn their ideas and their issues and problems into solutions, technical solutions. So coming to these types of discussions and sessions and hearing customer questions and complaints is exactly what I need to do my job. And it's why we love coming, and I love coming or being on a Zoom call to talk and listen to customers and share my experiences as well. I wanted to start off today's sort of session with a quote because it's something that we hear a lot from private label sellers. It's not necessarily a direct quote from anyone. It's a quote from the entire private label community. Price changing isn't relevant. I wholeheartedly understand why. When you go to conferences, you hear about all of the techniques of improving your sales rank, the velocity of your items, how aware the market is of your products. What people are generally looking at is improving their thumbnails and A/B testing and their keywords. And price changes is often not really considered because there's no way at the moment technologically to do price optimization in a really analytical way. And so the market is very in its infancy in the technologies around price optimization when it comes to private label listings. But what's important to remember in Amazon and all other types of marketplaces, we are still bound by regular economic principles. And at SellerSnap, we sort of refer to them as repriceonomics, repricing in economics. And the main principle that I think is important to remember as a private label seller is the competition of sellers looking for buyers ultimately leads to lower prices. Now, when we talk about the invisible private label buy box, essentially we're talking about the buy box that you can't see, but is ultimately there when one consumer comes to buy a product, but there are multiple substitute products available that they can buy. They're only going to select one to purchase. And so that buy box is essentially that product in the middle that they go and buy. And so if you can imagine that on a competitive listing where you have 10 sellers all selling an identical product, then the invisible buy box is the product that the consumer buys that is a substitute product, an almost similar product to yours, and they will only choose one to purchase. And so when you consider the concept of economics or repriceonomics in combination with the private label buy box, then you start to wonder how you can use price as a way to affect your sales. And really what we're trying to do is maximize our profit margin and increase our velocity that we sell our goods at. And so I'm going to show you how, in a case study, further on in the presentation, exactly how you can do this using some of the technologies available to private label sellers. And the technology that we have in order to do this is a tool called Follow Multiple Related ASIN, which some of you may have heard before. You may have heard someone at SellerSnap talk about it or seen the technology out in a different service as well. But I want to give you an exact example of how it works, as well as a case study of its use in practice. So Follow Multiple Related ASIN essentially allows sellers to select a basket of goods that is similar to theirs and then reprice their listing to be in line with the lower side of that basket of goods. So if you're selling a water bottle, there is an identical or very similar product to that water bottle, you can add that into your basket of goods and say, I always want to be repriced below that product. The effect of that is that if there is price changes in the market and that product raises or lowers price to your competitor, then that invisible buy box stays in your domain because you're repriced below. And when a consumer can only purchase one product at a time, they're more likely to purchase your product. And so I'll show you what that looks like in actuality with an actual product from one of our customers. This is obviously not the product itself, but it is in these categories, and this is, some remnants of a similar product. And I want to show you the 120 days this customer had access to our system that we were pulling in data, but they weren't using this follow multiple related ASIN tool. And so what you see here, the blue line is the average sale price by day, and then the orange line is the daily velocity. And you can see that the customer makes some manual repricing decisions up and down periodically, but generally speaking, we're sitting at that $32.50 mark and just staying consistently. Other side, it's the $17.50 mark, and just keeping the prices consistent. And what happens is the daily velocity jumps and lowers all day long. There's quite a significant disparity between the higher sales at 45 a day, all the way to the bottom where there might be 1 or 2 items sold a day. And there's many reasons this can occur. Consumer preference, consumer buying behaviors, competitive products. But one that is often not considered is the price in relation to our competitors. And so after this point, this 20-day mark, the customer turned on follow multiple related ASIN. And I'll show you the next 46 days up until the end of 2021. So here you can see the blue line being average sale price. There's quite a significant variation. And from the outset, it doesn't necessarily look like there's a significant trend line occurring between the average sale price in blue and the daily velocity. But what we see is we're losing those really large changes in the velocity, where we were going to 45 and then all the way down to 1. So the disparity between our velocity has shrunk and we're getting more consistent sales. Now, someone might say that's not necessarily a good or not necessarily a bad thing, but when we look at the numbers as a comparison in terms of daily averages, this is what we see. So without using follow multiple related ASIN, the average sale price is $21.18, and then the average velocity in a 24-hour period is 8 units and 0.68. But with follow multiple related ASIN, when we're following the price of our competitors up and down, and we have a backstop when our customers would technically drop below us and make our value proposition significantly lower, with follow multiple related ASIN, we can compete against our competitors when they drop or raise price and make sure we're also maximizing profits. So we see a significant jump in profit in sale price over $2, and our average velocity of units also jumps. And so that's how using price changing in combination with private label products to match your competitors in that invisible buy box can allow you to make sure that you're maintaining a good velocity, maintaining the highest price possible, and also blocking yourself from the susceptibility of your competitors undercutting you in order to win those sales. That's essentially the presentation. That's all I wanted to share today. I didn't want to make it too long. I know that you guys are there to have an in-person chat, and I just wanted to pop in. I did want to open up the floor for some discussion or questions if anyone has. It's difficult for me to hear, so if anyone wanted to ask questions and Todd can maybe relay them on to me, that would be fantastic. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yep, absolutely. If anybody has questions, I can kind of relay it to Adrian here.
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you talk about lowering price in order to be price competitive. I think in the AI world, most of us would be interested in how do you raise price while still maintaining competitiveness?
Did you catch
Correct.
that, Adrian?
I got the last bit. How do you raise price while still maintaining competitiveness?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So the way the system, fantastic. So the way the system works is it allows you to input the competitors that you know or the ASINs that you know. And so you might have 10 ASINs that are your competitors. And then our system will look for one of many parameters that you can set. I want to follow the lowest priced, highest sale rank. I want to follow the lowest buy box in its entirety. I want to follow the lowest or the highest FBA or FBM seller. And then so as those 10 listings raise and lower price all the time, your listing is always maintaining that lowest point. So in comparison to your competitors, even though there's raising and lowering price, you're always staying as the most competitive listing. And so the whole market might raise price, but you're still raising price below your competitors, making your listing the highest value proposition to the customer. And we still see significant variation because there's other, like we said before, market considerations, such as consumer preference, or just time of day or time of the year, but making sure that you're the most competitive against your competitors or similar substitute ASINs means that there's a higher chance that the customer is going to recognize your listing as the highest value proposition.
Okay, very good. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
How would you even consider, like, this system would work well if everybody was on the same page, or the first like 2 items on the same page for a particular keyword? You can't really, compare yourself to other, sellers that could be like, you could be on the page number 5. Doesn't matter what the price is, you're still on the page number 5 to get, 1/10 of the traffic. So you're driving down the prices. Not only getting the test of the traffic. Now you're killing a margin just on the bottom, on the top of it. So I'm not really following this, because
Yeah.
I mean the ranking position has got to be considered somewhere.
Yeah, did you catch that, Adrian, at all?
I didn't hear that one, sorry.
So essentially he's saying, let's say your product or our product is on page 5 and the people we're following is on the first page. How does the system take into account our sales rank versus theirs when doing the repricing? Because tanking our price isn't necessarily going to help us get to the first page.
Yeah, fantastic question. So I would say that this type of technology is not a technology that's used in isolation or in a silo. It is part of a larger strategy around improving your sales rank. That comes back to that comes back to your full strategy for releasing a product and selling it. The example I showed is obviously a very high performing listing that was using this type of technology, one where the sales ranks may have been comparable, where the substitute products, for example, were almost identical. The higher the identical nature of a product is, the higher chance that a follow multiple related ASIN will work. If you're looking at products that are, parts for a fridge, for example, maybe a tray that you place in your fridge, it's in the identical part that might be coming from the same factory, and it is just a substitute product in its entirety, then you see high results. If you're on page 5 and your competitors are on page 1, price isn't necessarily going to be the only consideration, and you might not have the same results that you saw in this example, but it is one strategy in combination with all of the other tools that you used in order to improve your sales performances. That's how I would sort of pitch it.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, looks like that's it, Adrian. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. Everyone, it was really lovely to be here. I would have loved to stay around for a drink myself and to have a bit of a chat in person. Not this time, but we'll be back out to Tampa eventually. If anyone is coming to Prosper or heading to, there's a few other conferences in this next little bit, in the next month or so, SellerSnap will be there. So feel free to knock on the door of whoever's there and come and say hello. We always love a chat. And if you're interested in trying out the system or this tool, or our regular AI repricing for competitive listings, like Todd said, we've got 20% off for the next 3 months. When you sign up, just say Tampa Bay Sellers.
All right, awesome. Appreciate it, Adrian. You have a great one.
Wonderful. Have a great one, guys. All the best.
Bye-bye.